Hey, time for another computer video history throwback from me, Zak Wolf. Giving them a special note for making YouTube poops and I've been making videos for fun since I was a preteen, even before YouTube came out, opened 20 years ago. I've seen how the history went. Today, digital video production is so ubiquitous, smartphones and tablets like these can shoot stunning 4K video and even edit on them. But I'm old-fashioned. Even if I film on something like my iPhone here, I'll still often import the footage into the computer, like M1 MacBook Air or whatever, to edit it on that. But 20 to 25 years ago, that wasn't the case. Digital video editing for the average consumer did exist, but you just needed a pretty hefty computer to do it, along with either a digital camcorder or some means of digitizing analog video. In the 1990s, computer video editing software was mostly aimed at professionals. It could be complicated to grasp at first, and as such, really expensive, like the old Avid Media Composer and Adobe Premiere versions of the time. Early versions of consumer editing software first appeared on the scene in the late 1990s, like Avid Cinema for both Windows and Macintosh. But compared to its professional counterparts, it was more limited and still kind of difficult for consumers to learn. A few others also hit the scene, such as the old MGI Video Wave and ULEAD Video Studio, often coming bundled with some kind of hardware to get video footage into your computer, like a PCI IEEE 1394 Firewire or analog video capture card. But in October 1999, Apple changed all that with the original iMovie. It was designed specifically for importing footage from the then new digital camcorders via Firewire and simple drag and drop editing techniques. You could start out with a storyboard mode and then when ready shift to the timeline, one video track and 3 audio tracks to work with. And that was indeed enough to get you started, along with easy to use editing tools, transitions, titles, and sound effects. The old iMovie's claim to fame was that it came preloaded on older Firewire-enabled Macs, like the classic iMac DV, meaning you only had to really pay for the computer without the extra costs of video capture hardware or software. And they used to also often come bundled with a 4-pin to 6-pin Firewire cable like this, since for some reason digital camcorders never included one in the box. Other companies took a cue from Apple and iMovie and began revising or devising easy-to-use consumer videoing software for new Windows, including new applications like Pinnacle's Studio DV, or when Apple's rival Microsoft bundled the rudimentary Windows Movie Maker onto Windows ME and Windows XP. The timeline on that was even more limited. One video track and only one spare audio track. That made it very hard if you wanted to make a video with music and narration and sound effects. And it stayed the same way with Windows Movie Maker's versions 2 for XP and 6 for Vista came out. But of course, it was still completely adequate for starting out in video editing, like I did in my very early teens. Other low-cost consumer video editing software at the time also sometimes still had only one video track, like the older Pinnacle Studio versions. But a few others, like the aforementioned Video Wave and Video Studio, let you work with a second overlay track of sorts. In addition to having at least 2 extra audio layers. Sonic Foundry, the original creator of the Vegas video software, also had a consumer version called Video Factory that similarly let you work with 2 video tracks. And when Sony bought Vegas Video, the consumer app was renamed Screen Blast Movie Studio and then Vegas Movie Studio, where they bumped it up to 4 video tracks. Then there was AIST's Movie DV suite, also offering multiple video and audio tracks, but it was infamously complicated for consumers. But all that changed in 2004 when Adobe Systems hopped on the consumer digital video bandwagon with Adobe Premiere Elements. This was not too long after their famous Adobe Premiere videoing software growing in popularity with Windows video hobbyists and even consumers already frustrated with the limitations of some other software, was rewritten as Adobe Premiere Pro, and that went over very well. So of course, the way they did with Photoshop Elements, they made a consumer-aimed version of Premiere. But what set Premiere Elements apart from many other consumer video editing programs was that it had more features akin to its professional-oriented sibling, including 99 video tracks and 99 audio tracks. Over 20 years ago, this was seen as an amazing feat in a world where videoing software for consumers generally only let you work with 1 to 4 audio tracks even. Well, technically, Premiere Elements wasn't the first consumer video editing application to do this. In the late 1990s, IMSI's Lumiere Video Studio let you work with 99 video tracks and 99 audio tracks. But again, this was before the iMovie revolution. It was also mainly geared at budding video hobbyists, which is why the interface also doesn't have a consumerish look. And while it had several of the same features as some pro-level multi-track video editing applications at the time, it didn't even have a built-in title editor. Horrors. But Adobe Premiere Elements also took the Premiere Pro interface and tweaked it to be more consumer-friendly, complete with an easy on-screen help menu. And it worked! At this time, Adobe Premiere Pro and Elements only worked on Windows, so if you used a Mac during that time, your only real option was Apple's Final Cut Express. A similar approach to Premiere Elements, but with some extra pro features added and being a little more expensive. Originally costing $300 compared to Premiere Elements just being $100. But it was a good deal compared to the more elaborate Final Cut Pro costing $1,000 then, while Premiere Pro was around $600. Even so, Premiere Elements pretty much changed consumer video editing forever. With 99 video and audio tracks and keyframe control, consumers can now have professional style video editing at an affordable price and do it easily. Like the original versions of iMovie, Adobe Premiere Elements was originally specifically aimed at consumers who wanted to edit DV footage on a Windows computer, albeit in a more professional manner. As such, it only accepted video through a DV FireWire capture, be it the popular mini DV format, a digital 8 camcorder like mine here, or you have the means to digitize analog video involving FireWire, like my digital 8 camcorder here being able to play back analog video and high 8 tapes, and even accept an analog to digital pass-through from a VCR or whatever. Right now I'm actually using this baby for my college's TV studio, digitizing their Video 8 and High 8 library for preservation. Anyways, like most consumer video editing applications at the time, it also let you make video DVDs, but the menu creation utilities are pretty limited compared to subsequent versions. Regarding that, after having worked with and enjoyed using Adobe Premiere 6.5 at my high school, and having graduated and recently gotten a better Dell PC tower for me and my brother to share, for my 18th birthday, one of my presents was Adobe Premiere Elements version 3.0. This version added HDV capture and support, with a codec you'd activate online at no extra cost, along with time-lapse, stop-motion capture, an audio narration recording utility, and a scene line mode, which is akin to the storyboard mode found in some other consumer video applications. Of course, having already worked in Premiere 6.5, I did most of my work in the timeline. Also, unlike that first version from 2004, this version could also import from tapeless camcorders at a time, like DVD and memory card models, even if the quality wasn't as good as DV at the time, and the DVD menu creation was also greatly improved. The following year, with version 4.0, your Adobe Premiere Elements' interface got kind of a facelift, if you will. It looked even more consumerish, being kind of reminiscent of the old iMovie, along with Elite Video Studio, but still retained the power of previous versions, like the aforementioned 99 video and audio tracks, but now it added a few more common consumer editing features like image stabilization, movie theme templates similar to the ones iMovie has, more video effects, and a direct YouTube uploader, which was handy for a YouTube creator like me. And it also added a few more pro-level features at a time, like an audio mixer and Blu-ray disc authoring. Then in 2008, the next version became Adobe Premiere Elements 7.0, skipping 5 and 6 so it can match Photoshop Elements' version number. Finally, in 2010, a Macintosh-compatible version came out with Premiere Elements 9. And of course, like the then current version of Premiere Pro, it would only work on Intel-based Macs. This is a good thing, because up until then, there weren't very many consumer video editing applications for the Mac, besides Apple's own iMovie, compared to the many options Windows users have. And with this, people getting frustrated by iMovie's limitations but weren't ready for Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro could move up to Premiere Elements to expand their movie editing capabilities. So naturally, when I got my first Intel-based Mac the following year, a 2-year-old white polycarbonate MacBook like that, I got the latest Adobe Premiere Elements for it and used it alongside iMovie and the then new Final Cut Pro 10. But I didn't use Premiere Elements on the Mac for long. By the end of 2012, I decided to finally upgrade to Adobe Premiere Pro. I found it even better for making YouTube poops on their Premiere Elements. Like when I made my Robin Hood poop, Disney buys out Hanna-Barbera on it. Yeah, I still have the Premiere Pro project files for it, upgraded to work on the newer versions. But anyways, by the time I switched from Premiere Elements to Premiere Pro, more and more consumer video editing software were catching up with Premiere Elements and such features. Like in 2006, when matcht's Movie Edit Pro software let you work with 16 video tracks, and when Pinnacle Studio came out with a more upscale Plus edition. While it only had 2 video tracks and 4 audio tracks, you still got the sound mixing and keyframe control akin to the Pro editors. And Sony's Vegas Movie Studio similarly offered features akin to their Vegas Pro software, such as keyframes and a sound mixer, GPU rendering, and bumping up the number of video audio tracks from 4 to 10 of each. So the more premium Platinum Edition lets you work with 20 video and 20 audio tracks. Next. Cyberlink Power Director, a longtime favorite of PC Magazine, also just had 2 video tracks during the mid-2000s. But then in 2008, Power Director 7 gave you 6 audio tracks, followed by Power Director 8 giving you 16 video tracks to work with, before making the big jump to offering 100 video and audio tracks to release the Power Director 9 in 2010, something it still does today. Also in 2011, Adobe Systems, the owner of Pinnacle at the time, they discontinued their Liquid Edition professional editing software and retooled it into Avid Studio, being a mid-range product very similar to Liquid, complete with unlimited video and audio tracks. But the following year, Avid sold that and the rest of Pinnacle Systems to Corel, now known as All You Do. And all new versions of Pinnacle Studio since they were based on the Avid Studio tooling. The regular basic version of Pinnacle Studio gives you 6 AV tracks. But again, Pinnacle Studio Ultimate gives you unlimited tracks, definitely being geared more towards hobbyists and prosumers, the way Avid Studio was, along with Adobe Premiere Elements and the new Cyberlink Power Director versions. Even the video editors in the Nero and Roxio media burning suites now let you work with virtually unlimited media tracks. Later on, when matcht bought the Vegas line of software from Sony, they soon made it so Vegas Movie Studio and their own Movie Edit Pro gave you 200 video and audio tracks to work with. Jeez, I can't imagine any consumer seeing that many. Heck, even 100 video and audio tracks like in Premiere Elements, while it's very unlikely a consumer or hobbyist video editor would need to use all of them in a single project, the flexibility is definitely great. But a few years ago, matcht discontinued Vegas Movie Studio, since they already have their own Movie Edit Pro, renamed Movie Studio Platinum. but thankfully leaving Vegas Pro intact for the prosumers and professionals, including many Windows YouTube poopers. Even Microsoft's current video editor, bundled with Windows 11, Clipchamp, lets you work with unlimited video and audio tracks. But you still can't use keyframes or motion tracking or some other pro-level features. Heck, you can't even do rubber band style audio volume editing the way you can on other consumer video editing programs. Even Apple's iMovie. Because this is a pretty basic vlog, I edited this video you're watching on iMovie, which currently only really lets you work with 2 video tracks and a title or graphic overlay track. But you still get virtually unlimited audio tracks. And this is definitely sufficient for beginners, or even someone like making a simple kind of video, such as this. Today, Adobe Premiere Elements is still pretty good from what I saw, and after getting a little too consumerish looking for a while, the interface has gone back to looking kind of similar to Premiere Pro, and even has the similar advanced lumetri color correction feature Pro does. Though it's not that much of a stretch, since I've also seen color correction wheels in Cyberlink Power Director and Pinnacle Studio Ultimate and matcht's Movie Edit Pro Studio. And in addition to the familiar advanced mode, it has quick and guided modes for beginners. Well, it still doesn't support multicam editing or 3D or 360-degree video. And these two are features once mostly limited to professional videoing software, but showing up in consumer applications like Power Director or Studio Ultimate. But Premiere Elements does have built-in motion tracking, something Premiere Pro still doesn't have yet. Also, Premiere Elements doesn't have DV Firewire video capture support anymore, or the ability to author DVD or Blu-ray discs. I can kind of see why, given the last tape-based digital video cameras were discontinued in the early 2010s, and some companies still foolishly think DVDs and Blu-rays are obsolete. But many Windows video editing programs for consumers still include decent disk authoring capabilities, including the Windows version of Power Director. And that brings up something else. After the success of Cyberlink making iOS and Android versions of the Power Director, then seeing Apple's coming out with Apple Silicon Macs that could run iOS apps, Cyberlink decided to do what Adobe did with Premiere Elements and make a Mac-compatible version. It's got nearly all the features of the Windows equivalent, except for DV video capture support, disk authoring, multicam editing, or the color director utility. And unlike when Premiere Elements first came out in a Mac-compatible version, today there are multiple options for consumers to step up in their video editing capabilities on a Mac without having to make the jump to professional software, like Cyberlink Power Director, Wondershare Filmora, or NCH Video Pad. And they too let you work with 100 video and 100 audio tracks. So they are definitely a pretty good step up from iMovie. As for myself, I do still use Adobe Premiere Pro for certain video projects, but I haven't made a YouTube poop on it for 10 years now, having largely switched to exclusively making it with Final Cut Pro. And to be fair, in its current iteration, Final Cut has some more features than Premiere Pro. Even some useful AI-assisted tools I find handy for my YouTube poops, like the new magnetic mask feature. A similar features also included in Power Director. And then there's the voice isolation feature that's also handy for when I'm doing sentence mixing or something. Maybe someday I'll make a new YouTube poop in Premiere Pro, or maybe even try one in Power Director when I'm ready. But Final Cut Pro is so far still my favorite YouTube poop creation software, and it keeps getting better for it. Also, when Apple launched Final Cut in 2011, the price even ended up dropping down to $300, a price to make it more attractive to prosumers and hobbyists like me. But yeah, computer video editing sure has come a long way, and I feel Adobe Premiere Elements had a big part to play in it, just as much as Premiere Pro and Apple's iMovie and Final Cut Pro did. But of course, I will keep making videos as long as you keep watching this channel.